When most of us first learned the story of Noah's Ark, it was simple. A world engulfed in water. Noah, the chosen righteous man, two of every animal saved, a rainbow as a promise. And then, peace, a fresh start, a new world. But as adults, when we slow down and read carefully, the story after the flood raises some deep, unsettling questions. What happened next? How did humanity repopulate the earth? How could a single family spread across the globe with all the genetic diversity we see today? And why did God command Noah's descendants to spread out, yet they disobey, clustering in one city? Tonight we explore the fascinating story of what happened after Noah's flood, humanizing it and examining the biblical account with logic, historical context, and critical thinking. The floodwaters recede. Noah's Ark rests on the mountains of Ararat. The Bible tells us that Noah and his family leave the ark. God blesses them. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. A fresh start. Humanity renewed. But immediately, the narrative presents tension. Noah plants a vineyard, makes wine, and becomes drunk. His own son Ham sees him naked, and Noah curses Ham's son Canaan. Pause there. Why curse Canaan instead of Ham? Why introduce conflict so early in the post-flood story? The world has just been reset, and already family tension emerges. But perhaps the story is highlighting something profoundly human. Even after salvation, human flaws persist. It reminds us that morality, jealousy, and conflict are not erased by divine intervention. Then comes the Tower of Babel, the next major post-flood event. Noah's descendants, particularly the people of Shinar, gather in one place and decide to build a city with a tower reaching the heavens. They are united, ambitious, and technologically capable. Yet God intervenes, confusing their language and scattering them across the earth. Here's a logical question. If God's initial command was to fill the earth, why did humanity cluster together instead of spreading out naturally? Was it human ambition, pride, or simple comfort in staying together? And how does language confusion suddenly explain the origin of all the world's diverse tongues? The Tower of Babel story seems to offer an explanation for linguistic diversity, but from a modern perspective, it raises questions. Could language really emerge from sudden confusion? Or is this a symbolic story about human pride and the limits of collective ambition? Returning to Noah's family, we see that the three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, are meant to spread across the earth. The genealogies in Genesis map their descendants to regions and nations. Shem to the Middle East, Ham to Africa, Japheth to Europe. But here's the puzzle. The world is enormous. Population would need hundreds of millions over centuries. How could all races, languages, and nations emerge from a single family? Genetically and historically, this seems improbable. Perhaps the story is not literal, but symbolic. A narrative to explain origins, migration, and cultural diversity in a way ancient people could understand. A moral lesson about human behavior, divine judgment, and the consequences of rebellion. Let's humanize this further. Imagine being Noah. You survive the flood, witness the destruction of almost all life, and are commanded to rebuild humanity. How would you feel? Relief? Responsibility? Fear? And imagine being Ham, Shem, or Japheth. You are the starting point for entire nations, yet the world is wide and uncertain. The post-flood narrative is full of contradictions, lessons, questions. A family blessed to start anew, yet plagued by immediate conflict. Command to scatter the earth, yet an urge to build a city in defiance. Promises of peace and renewal, yet human pride persists. And there's one more subtle but profound point. The rainbow God's covenant is not a magical shield against all conflict. It is a reminder. A symbol of potential, not guarantee. Even after divine intervention, humans remain capable of error. And perhaps that is the most important lesson. The flood resets the earth physically, but the human heart desires, pride, fear, and ambition remains. History and science show us that repopulation, migration, and diversity are complex processes. Biblical storytelling simplifies them into symbolic narratives that resonate across generations. So what do we take from this story? Is it literal history? A moral allegory? A combination of both? And what does it tell us about ourselves? Even when given a fresh start, humans make mistakes. Even when commanded to obey, humans resist. Even when promised mercy, humans struggle with pride, jealousy, and ambition. Noah's flood is not just a story about water. It's a story about human nature. And the post-flood narrative reminds us that history, morality, and faith are rarely simple. If this exploration challenged what you thought you knew about the post-flood story, take a moment to like this video. It helps this channel reach viewers who want deeper, thoughtful investigations into biblical stories. And if you want more documentary-style explorations of biblical contradictions, ancient mysteries, and humanized scripture analysis, subscribe and turn on notifications. Because sometimes the stories after salvation are more complex than the flood itself. And sometimes the greatest lesson is not in the destruction, but in how we rebuild.